Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome into another edition To The Point Podcast. Hope you're all doing well. We are live here on a Wednesday, and we have lots to dive into. Shamus Fillmore will make a rare Wednesday appearance, but he will be on with me in due time. We'll talk about a number of things. We'll talk about his Maple Leafs. He's actually going to a Leafs game this coming Friday in the city of Toronto. So we'll get his thoughts on that, on the trade that happened over the weekend, on the game last night, all that fun stuff. Also want to get into some NBA news and notes with Shamus, and if we have time, we will talk baseball. If we don't get there, I will talk about it tomorrow because, it is a smaller time in the schedule. But today, there's lots from the NHL world to dive into. And we could start today with Toronto. We're not going to because I have something more interesting, in my opinion, to start the show with. Because we could start with the Ryan O'Reilly Tavares line having a great night. You could say, I look stupid today. I'm wrong. Not wrong. Not wrong yet, anyway. I will admit when I am wrong, but I am not wrong yet. We will wait and see. Will come at a later date if I'm truly wrong about the John Tavares playing on the wing experiment, if you will. But let's start today with something I was pondering last night. I'm watching a number of different games. I'm watching the Detroit Red Wings play the Washington Capitals. I watched the first 8-9 minutes of the Leafs game until the game was about 4-0, and I said, okay, it's enough for me. And I'm watching LA, Minnesota, which was a lot of fun. Good game, if you missed it. But as I'm watching these games, I'm taking notes, getting ready for the show today. I'm thinking about Patrick Kane. And I talked with Jonathan Tajesh, and I got into Chicago Blackhawks a little bit, and I thought back to the weekend, or it might have been Monday, where there was pundits pontificating about Patrick Kane ending up in Chicago, where, yes, he would be incredibly fun playing with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, and their defensive structure could somehow get worse. But then I said, that doesn't make sense. They have no cap room. That's not going to work. Could he go to Boston? Well, same thing. $10.5 million. You need a third team. If they're going to get Vladislav Gavrikov, I don't see Patrick Kane ending up there. So that doesn't work. And is Patrick Kane an accepted trade to Edmonton? I wouldn't at this point. I'd ride out the rest of the year and go to Cancun in April before I go to Edmonton. Because guess what? They're not winning the Stanley Cup, and the city sucks. It's a piece of news for you right up front, Patrick. But then I said, well, the West is wide open. Any team from the Western Conference currently could get to the Stanley Cup final. Minnesota has flaws. They could get to a Stanley Cup final. Yes. I feel like Gustafson's playing fantastic. I love Colorado. They got question marks. Winnipeg, really good team. They got question marks playing the Islanders tonight. Should be a fun game. Love their goaltending. But again, they got question marks. I think they need to be aggressive at the trade deadline. Shovel day off never is. Could you get Timo Meier in Winnipeg? That would be interesting. But Patrick Kane, if you're a Western Conference team, you look at it and say, we could make a Stanley Cup final this year. And if you make a Stanley Cup final, you have a 50% chance of winning the Stanley Cup. That's just math. I was never good at math, but when there's only two teams left, that's 100%. You get a pie. You have the whole pie, it's 100%. If you say, okay, I'm taking half, I'm taking another, that means you get 50% of the pie. I figured that one out. Figured enough math out. Shamus when he gets on. He's more of a numbers, he's more of a math person to really just to justify my argument. Let's say I'm right for now. Well, the LA Kings are a very good team. They have their flaw, goaltending, which I may talk about later in the show. I like their team a lot. I think Quentin Byfield's getting a lot better. Love seeing his development in his game. But is Patrick Kane going to push them over the top? Phoenix Copley, Jonathan Quick? No. They need a defenseman also. That's the need on their team. So it doesn't really work. Dallas. Can't really afford Patrick Kane. Is Chicago going to trade into Dallas? Unlikely. There's the perfect team for Patrick Kane. And there's a city I don't see him saying no with his no movement clause. And that team is the Vegas Golden Knights. Viva Las Vegas. Patrick Kane is box office. Patrick Kane is the real deal. And Vegas is the showstopper. It is the most interesting city in North America, you could argue. It's where everybody wants to be. And the Vegas Golden Knights do have a shot at getting to the Stanley Cup final in the Western Conference. Despite that Logan Thompson is out and that Mark Stone was put on LTIR, this is where it opens up. Mark Stone was put on long-term injured reserve last night with the likelihood he will not play again in the regular season. So this gives Vegas the flexibility to inquire about one of two players, Timo Meier or Patrick Kane. Timo Meier makes a little over $8 million. You have Patrick Kane who makes $10.5 million. Chicago's not going to be mad to take in money. They'll take half of that salary willingly to get rid of him. So that means $9.5 million. That means you don't get to spend all that. You won't be spending $9.5 million. You'll actually have more. So last night I created the Vegas-Chicago deal for Patrick Kane. And here it is. So the Vegas Golden Knights in this trade will be acquiring Patrick Kane and Jake McCabe on the back end. Jake McCabe, steady defenseman. Vegas gets him another year in his contract, so they get him for 2 years. Patrick Kane, likely in the door, out the door. Best case scenario, win a Stanley Cup. He's a rental. But Jake McCabe, you get a second season. I like it. Chicago Blackhawks, in return, will be doing this. Chicago will get a 2023 first-round pick from the Vegas Golden Knights. They will get a 2023 fourth-round pick. They don't have a second. It's traded. They will get prospect Zach Dean, who you might remember from the World Junior Hockey Championship, currently playing for the Gatineau Olympic, one of the best teams in the QMJHL. And they will get Jonas Ronberg, another high-quality prospect. He's played some NHL games already. And a 2024 fifth. So to repeat, 2023 first, 2023 fourth, Zach Dean, Jonas Ronberg, and a 2024 fourth. 2 players that will help your team this year. You get Mark Stone back for the playoffs. And with this trade, you should still be able to activate Logan Thompson off IR when he's ready. So you'll have him and Aiden Hill ready to go. That won't be an issue. I think this makes sense for both teams. And for Chicago, buyers can't be choosers because Patrick Kane holds all the cards. If he says, I don't want to go anywhere, that means you're not trading him. 2 assets you have to keep through the trade deadline. Jonathan Toews and Patrick Kane, that is worst case scenario. That's worst case. You could say, well, we might get a better deal from Edmonton, but if Patrick Kane says, I don't want to go there, then it's a moot point. If he says, I will accept a trade to Vegas, which I don't know why he would not. You have a chance to win. You have a better chance to win in Edmonton. You do. Edmonton might have won last night against the Philadelphia Flyers. I've seen enough of their games to know that they are a train wreck on fucking wheels. Connor McDavid's unbelievable. Best player in the world. Draisaitl, top 4. Stuart Skinner hasn't played a playoff game. Jack Campbell can't make a save. I'm not going through the roster again. I'm sick of the Oilers. But they're not winning. I like Vegas to beat them in a series. Vegas might win the Pacific Division. That means you get a better matchup. You get a wild card team. You might get Edmonton in that first round. But if you only go to Vegas, I want to get as much as possible for him. And if I throw Jake McCabe in the deal, I look at Jake McCabe in this trade as the 2023 fourth. That's about what he's worth. He's worth a fourth round pick. So you get the 2023 fourth in the deal. Maybe you can push that to a third. Maybe it's conditional fourth. Could be a third round pick if the Vegas Golden Knights reach the conference finals. I'd do that from Vegas. They do have a third round pick. You could put a condition on that. You get Zach Dean, who didn't have a great World Juniors. He's had an okay season in the QMJHL, but he's one of Vegas' top prospects. Vegas doesn't have all that deep of a prospect pool. I nearly threw Luca Cormier in this deal, but I think Chicago wants some pieces up front. That's where they want to build. You're losing Taves, you're losing Kane, you lost the bread man years ago. You traded Alex DeBrincat. You need to start putting some good play. You lost Kirby Doc. You need to restock that forward prospect pool, and Zach Dean helps that process. You hopefully win the draft lottery, select Connor Bedard, and you'll have another first-round pick in this draft. Zach Dean was a first-round pick. So you're starting to stockpile players already towards your rebuild and your retool moving forward. Ron Berg is a player that's playing. He can plug into your roster. You might lose for a couple seasons. He can play on that team while you're losing. And draft picks. I think this is a good trade for both teams. For Chicago, you need to accept what you can get for Patrick Kane. This is what when there's only so many teams available, you take what you can get. And quite honestly, the prospects in Edmonton aren't great either. I don't love their prospect pool down there. You could flip Zach Dean for Luca Cormier. Luca Cormier is already playing in the American Hockey League, so you might like that a little bit more. He's not an NHL defenseman yet. I wish him all the best. He's from the Maritimes. Of course, I root for him, but he isn't yet. It's just a fact. I'm not going to make him seem better than he is. Zach Dean, do we know he's going to be an NHL player? No, we don't. But that's the gamble of the NHL draft. And you got nobody currently, so you'd like to add another prospect to your team. He has a chance to win the Memorial Cup this year. He'll play as a 20 for Rockford next year in the AHL. So I think you could flip prospects for Vegas. You have Mark Stone's $9.5 million to play with. He had back surgery, so this isn't something where he's just sitting out because you want to add pieces to your roster. He's legitimately hurt. It's true. Maybe he could come back in early April and he could play the last 2 games of the season, but I don't penalize teams that are just flat out doing business. If you don't want to play your guys at that certain moment, I have no problem with that. No problem with that. Because that's just the way the game's played. That's the way you operate. You give yourself every advantage that you possibly can to be better. And if that means you put somebody in LTIR because they're injured and they stay on there a little bit longer, so be it. So be it. Who gives a crap? Okay, Kucherov shouldn't have been on there as long as he was. Okay, the league do something about it. The fan base that cries about that, I could give a shit about them, and I'm sitting here. If I'm a team, I don't care. I'm trying to win. I'm trying to gain as much advantage as I possibly can. Patrick Kane gives me a chance to win, gives him a chance to win his 4th Stanley Cup. And you have Jack Eichel on that team. Riley, you don't have to get rid of Jack Eichel. You don't have to part with Riley Smith. You don't have to part with Marchessault. You don't have to part with Mark Stone. Pietrangelo remains on the roster. Alec Martinez, Shea Theodore. Does that sound appetizing? Michael Amadio, William Carrier, guys who are good. I think Vegas can be a very solid playoff team. And when healthy, Logan Thompson is a solid netminder. Kane's a difference maker. He still is. He's shown it the last couple nights, and oddly enough, the Chicago Blackhawks and the Vegas Golden Knights squared off last night, and Chicago won the game in the gimmick. So both teams just played each other. It was in Chicago. Maybe the general managers had some conversations. I found it fitting that it was yesterday afternoon that Mark Stone was put on LTIR. He was put in LTIR yesterday afternoon, and maybe you start having conversations. You start putting the framework of a trade in place. Now, there's no reporting on Patrick Kane to Vegas. Nothing at all. I haven't heard anything from any insider. This is me trying to create something because I believe it makes sense. This Vegas organization has pushed their chips in since it began. They said screw you to Pieces. They said screw you to Paul Stastny. They said screw you to Marc-Andre Fleury. They haven't given a shit about anybody. They will part with anybody. The perfect thing about this trade, they don't have to part with anybody on the roster. Their roster stays the way it is, which is a good team, and you add a difference maker to that already very good team. Vegas currently is first in the Pacific Division, and they haven't had Mark Stone for the majority of the season. They've missed Pietrangelo for 10-plus games because of family reasons. Alec Martinez has been banged up. And through all of it, they remain in first place. They remain a very competitive team that can beat anybody. LA can't afford him. And I also think LA wants Jacob Chychrun. I think that's the deal they want to try to pull off. I still don't have faith that will work because of Arizona, not so much Los Angeles, because I think they know how to make deals down there. They can make it happen, but if Arizona, as Bill Armstrong's, unwilling to pull the trigger and let Jacob Chychrun escape from the darkness like Aaron Rodgers will soon enough, then you can't really do anything about that. You got to take it on the chin and kind of move on. What else can happen? LA, Minnesota doesn't have the money to do it. They can't make that deal happen. Dallas, that isn't happening. Colorado needs a centerman. They need Konechny. I've already made that deal. I've already talked about it. Sammy Girard going back to Philadelphia. Travis Konechny coming Colorado. You have to have pieces with Sammy Girard, but Konechny ends up in Colorado. You got a team. Now, Kel McCarr needs to be healthy, of course. But they got a centerman. You got a right winger in Vegas. Marchessault, Patrick Kane, Mark Stone. I like those wingers. That's tough to deal with. Let him settle in, and I think he can be magic. Because he's magic currently with Max Domi and Tyler Johnson. He was playing with Jason Dickinson last week. Jason Dickinson, the journeyman penalty killer. That's who Patrick Kane was playing extended minutes with as a centerman. What if you put him on a line with Eichel? Two Americans on the same line doing damage. Whew. Sounds pretty intriguing. In the Eastern Conference, again, I don't see a perfect landing spot for Patrick Kane. The Toronto Maple Leafs, I don't see it. That's not their need. They don't need another forward. They addressed it. Boston, I think they want to add to their back end. If they add somebody up front, it would be more of a depth piece. A replacement for Craig Smith, a better option. That's what I do with my Tuesday nights when I'm watching games. I'm thinking, what's a trade that can make sense? And the Kane to Vegas one just made too much for me. And I'll repeat it. The trade is Patrick Kane and Jake McCabe. going to the Vegas Golden Knights, and in return, Chicago gets a 2023 first round pick, a 2023 fourth round selection, prospect Zach Dean, prospect Jonas Ronberg. They'll retain 50% of Patrick Kane's salary, and they'll also get a 2024 fifth round draft selection. This is the fun time of year, but I would be trying everything. And if you got that cap space, make it happen. And it's one thing to, as I see our guest come on, we'll welcome him in here on a special Wednesday edition. He's got a busy week coming up. He'll be heading out to the Six later in the week, or as I like to call it, gloom and doom, because it's February and it's Toronto. But Shamus, I haven't talked to you live on here since the big trade for Ryan O'Reilly and Nola Chari. How are you feeling? How is Leafs Nation feeling about this deal?
Probably helps with the shitty weather they're getting, but that's okay. A little gloom and doom. I like that. No, I think it's good. I think it makes everyone's day a little brighter. See a performance like that always helps, but it's just strange because it was this time last week it feels like we were just talking about how he's not going to trade a first round pick. He's not going to move Matthew Knives, and 3 days later he's made this big fabulous move to get Ryan O'Reilly and trade 4 picks away along with prospect. So it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know what he was trying to accomplish by saying he was going to move something and then goes out and does it. It kind of looks bad on him and management as a whole. But obviously he's a game changer, and I mean it gets you a little excited for sure seeing him last night, how well he fits in so well already.
So let me ask you, Tavares on the wing with O'Reilly at center. Is that your long-term? Do you like that long-term?
No, I like what they were starting originally with O'Reilly playing deeper in the lineup. I just find having those 3 guys, if you can get those 3 guys at center, I mean, there's only one team in my mind that matches that center depth, and that's Winnipeg. So yeah, I mean, that's my ideal situation, but we know Sheldon Keefe's willing to switch it up on the fly. If he thinks that 3 guys are gelling really well, which they did gel really well last night, then that's great. That might work against a lesser team, or I shouldn't say a lesser team. Buffalo is not lesser anymore, but a team that's not as structured defensively, we'll say, as Buffalo, which they are not. That might work for them, but it might not work for a Boston. It might not work for a Tampa, who have 3 really solid lines that you have to keep rolling out there. So that's where I'd like to see the O'Reilly fit in with a Cali Yarncroc and maybe an Engvall or a Kerfoot on the side with them.
Do you like a Char? He's thrown more hits than your fourth line all year in 3 games.
Yeah, like him and Zach Aston-Reese last night have been just crushing guys. But yeah, no, fully love that move as well. I mean, he's maybe just a throw-in, but he does a great job of getting into his role. He's already scored a goal with the team, and if that's all his line is bang around on the fourth line, then I mean that's it. I love it. I love the move overall, but it does scream like this is a last grab or else I'm leaving. Like this is the end of my job.
Right. Yeah, I agree. And O'Reilly's smart. It's not the way I thought they'd go, because O'Reilly's definitely not the Dubas disciple. He's not a 5'9" forward from Sault Ste. Marie. He is from Toronto, but he doesn't play the style that Dubas particularly loves. But I will say this is a positive endorsement that he's willing to try different things and acquire somebody that might 2 guys that are kind of outside his normal comfort zone.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the toughness was needed. I look at all the best teams in the league now. You got Boston. I saw a staggering stat recently that I think Jussi Puljujärvi might lead Edmonton in fights, which and he's only got like 2. So
right.
I think those things go hand in hand. Like some of the tougher teams are obviously some of the better teams in the league, whether it's Minnesota with their I guess, just depth of guys who are just willing to go toe to toe with anybody. Winnipeg certainly has tough guys. You love your boy Lowry in the middle. Plus, Shifley's not shying away from any contact. So, yeah, I mean, there's certainly those two things go hand in hand. And Toronto is, I would say, the weakest in that division with still being able to have success, right? So,
Right.
we get to the playoffs, you're going to have to get tougher, and that's ultimately what they're trying to get done here. And hopefully, they're not done.
Right. And in saying that, today the big news was finally they announced that Jake Muzzin is done for the season. I've only been calling for it for 3 weeks, and I'd like to congratulate all the journalists down there for not getting the scoop, letting the Leafs announce it. You got so many people that work covering the one team, which I know is a tough job, only covering one of 32 possible teams. So congratulations to Chris Johnson and everybody else down there who didn't get it. But Jake Muzzin's done for this season, which I'll just start off with this, Shay, before we get into the bigger picture. I didn't want to see him back on the ice. I think
No.
his career's done. I have a lot of respect for Jake Muzzin. He's a champion. He's a warrior. Every time he's on the ice, he gave you everything he had. And he did what he could for Toronto. It's just unfortunate, just some of the untimely injuries he suffered while playing for your Maple Leafs.
Yeah, and it's no it's no shot against him, but playing on the line obviously does come with a lot of consequences. I look at over at Philadelphia, I look at Sean Couture's career, look at Mark Stone, he's in the lineup a lot. Patrice Bergeron, obviously the forefront of that. When you do play on the line, you play with a lot of physicality and you put your body on the line to make defensive plays, and I think Muzzin empowered that from the time he got into the league. Obviously, it wears and tears on your body, and concussions are just part of that. When you're physical, you're just bound to get them home more often. It just happens. But yeah, I mean, there's not a time that I watched a game and said that Jake Muzzin didn't give everything he could on the ice. So even when he was banged up, which unfortunately was at the end of his career a lot. So yeah, I mean, did whatever he could. He was still a threat every time offensively, and like I just said, defensively, he was as good as any for the Leafs, which was something that was really refreshing after watching Morgan Rielly scoop the puck out of the back of his net for years.
So with that being said, his $5.8 million is now open for the Maple Leafs to play with.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, that could be another impact player. That could be another splash.
Yeah.
But my thought is they don't have a 2023 first.
Mm-mm.
They don't got a second. They don't got a fourth. They got Matthew Nyes. And yeah. I don't know about you, Shib, but I get the feeling he's kind of an untouchable.
Yeah, it sucks because like you're always going to think, they get to the first round, they lose to Tampa, or maybe they get past the first round, God forbid, and they lose to Boston. It's like, well, if we had that extra D-man on the back end, that one guy that played like Muzzin,
right,
put it on the line like Muzzin, what would be different? So I feel like if I was Dubas, I think Knives can't be untouchable. I think you have to explore those options, especially where, we don't get many great prospects. I'm sorry, but that's anyone who's a Leafs fan. I mean, what was our last great prospect? Nick Robertson? Oh, yeah. How many games has he played? Maybe 100, maybe 50. I don't know.
Right.
So, yeah, I think Knives is more as valuable as he sounds. I think he still has to be available to, even if it's Knives for straight up for Gravikov and maybe somebody else, or if it's
right,
you go down the road, you want to get Joel Edmondson and maybe another guy. I mean, that's got to be it, right?
Would you be willing to part with Matthew Nyes for Dmitry Orlov?
So Orlov's in the last year of his contract, I think.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's still a top 4 defenseman in my mind. He still does some really good things. He sometimes plays really, really smart, and there's sometimes I'm watching Washington thinking, well, why isn't he extended yet? But, maybe there's a hidden reason. If he's a rental, I'd have a hard time seeing it.
You might want a hefty check.
I'm sure that probably plays heavy into favor. I foresee him staying with Washington, even just because he's comfortable. He's good friends with Kuznetsov, Ovi. But if it was Knives for Orlov straight up, I could live with that. Yeah, for sure. To get another depth defenseman.
I wonder if Chychrun is still a possibility. I don't trust Arizona whatsoever. But Matthew Nyes might win the Hobey Baker. That's intriguing enough for Arizona. They don't want to be any good, so Chikrin doesn't help them, and he helps them win, quite honestly. And they've been kind of on a tear lately. So I think it unlikely that they could pull that off. But if you're going to go for a defenseman, which I think is, do you agree with me? That's where they need to go, or is it
Oh,
goaltending for
absolutely.
you?
No, yeah. I think it's defenseman. I think at this point you've kind of embedded with Samsonov. I don't know. There's too many goalies you can just go scoop out there, but I would be much more assured if there was a better defenseman helping out that, say, goaltender.
Right. Because I think Orlov, you have Gavrikov, as you mentioned, in Columbus, who's still there. Chikrin.
Not too many. I thought, and this is just maybe a shot in the dark. If Luke Shen was available and he wasn't asking too much, even as a depth guy who can play a third role, I mean, he's gonna, again, like you said, he's not a Dubas type player because he fights and he actually plays pretty good defense. But even he's an option. I'm sure you'll see him get moved. It might not be to Toronto, but it'll be
Right.
somewhere else.
I'd be good with that because he doesn't have to play every game either. We've seen in Tampa, he can sit and come in and play very well.
Yeah.
I don't mind Timmins, but in the playoffs, I'd rather play Luke Shen than Connor Timmins personally.
Yeah, absolutely. More experience.
Mm-hmm.
Plays up and down the line. He played. Sometimes he was playing with Hedman just because Hedman can play with anybody, right? So it's just like, okay, we'll put him with him, and he's gonna, he's covered because he's playing with a one man show.
Right. Yeah, defense would help that team. Obviously, though, Jake Muzzin to add another player like Jake Muzzin is incredibly tough. They're just not built that way anymore in the National Hockey League. I talked about Vegas off the top, and I think Patrick Kane going to Vegas makes too much sense. And they put Mark Stone on LTIR. It's $9.5 million.
Yeah.
They can eat half of it. They don't have to trade many big pieces off their roster. Are you in agreement with me on that? What's your response to me on that idea?
I'm not going to say no. I think as more teams kind of drop out of the Patrick Kane race, I think it's more and more likely he'll get moved. I heard rumors that he'd be willing to stay for another year in Chicago and sign one deal. Basically, he'd just drop off the face of the earth this season. That way, they start losing more because he's not in the lineup, and they have the chance of getting one of these top end prospects. But at the same time, what is that going to do for you long term? Great, you have Patrick Kane for a year, and he plays with Bedard. You're going to sell tickets, obviously, but
right,
you're not getting any picks, you're not getting any prospects. Your team is going to be shit in 2-3 seasons. It doesn't make any sense. So I'm in agreement with you that he still needs to be on the move. And for Chicago's sake, I mean, they beat my Leafs. What was it?
Sunday night.
3-4, yeah, Sunday night. So, I mean, I don't know. He's winning them games. He has to get off the roster so they get a chance for Bedard, right?
Right.
And Taves has now shut it down for the season, which I think is great. Not great for Taves, obviously, but great for the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, for Vegas, their owner's willing to spend. He's willing to spend. He's got deep pockets. And this is a team that I feel like would cut the throat of a player who's been there for a while, a Riley Smith, a Jonathan Marchessault, just to be like, hey, thanks for putting in your 5-6 years, but it's time to go and try to win.
I think they can do it without getting rid of any big pieces too.
Yeah, I guess if they can eat most of Kane's contract, then I guess Mark Stone on the ITLR. It's not like where before they had a hard time with fitting in, Patch Reddy and Stone's contracts with Eichel moving in. So, yeah, I could see that. I guess it'd be good, and they need it. I mean, they lose to Arizona last night. Is it Arizona
lost to Chicago last night?
Oh, they lost to Chicago. Sorry. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ironically, so yeah. I mean, they need a help. They're in a good spot, but at the same time, you play in a very weak division. You don't want to get caught lacking and thinking you're tougher than you actually are when you hit the Central.
Right. Sounds like Tyler Bertuzzi is going to stay in Motown. That was announced today, which is a blow for, I think, many teams around the league. So I think Winnipeg was really interested in Tyler Bertuzzi. They wouldn't mind kicking tires on him. So he's staying. They're only 2 points out of a playoff spot. They're on a run right now. Ville Husso is playing great.
Mm-hmm.
Dylan Larkin's a pending UFA, but he's scoring a goal every night or getting kicked out as he did last night in the first period. Your Predators. You had them winning the
Yeah.
cup, right?
I had them going to the Cup final. I don't know if I picked them to win. It
Well,
was them or Tampa. Those were my
them
two
or
teams.
Tampa. So they did beat Vancouver last night, but they got bad news that Ryan Johansen's done for the season. It sounds like he had surgery today, so he's likely done. I thought he could be somebody they sell, which is another blow to that team.
Yeah.
Should they be full on sell Shea?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like last season. To quote Daryl Sutter, it was irrelevant when they end up having to play Colorado because it was a waste of 8 days. I feel like it's kind of got that same feeling. They didn't do. I shouldn't say that because they did make attempts to do good things in their off season. It wasn't. They brought in Niederreiter, they brought in McDonough. I mean, they have the goaltender. They have a top 5 goaltender in my mind, and they have a lot of good things going on, but it does feel like at this point making to the playoffs is just kind of like getting that gold star in grade 1 when you're, you got the gold star just to get in or just to be part. Yeah, attendance. It's like that. That's all this is meaning at this point. You're attending the playoffs. I don't know. You're right. I do feel like they need to maybe sell some pieces or regroup and kind of get ready. Kind of like what St. Louis is doing. St. Louis is kind of being the forefront of everybody and saying, here's our aging stars. We're going to get rid of them. We're going to get stuff back. And probably in a few years, we're going to be competitive again.
Ekholm has a couple years left. They might find a sucker on Ekholm. He's 31. I think he's got 3 years left after this one, which
he's got a ticket too. I mean, over 6.
Yeah, Jesus. I don't mind him, but his skating's getting worse, and I could see that getting worse. But they might find a sucker because teams are looking for defense.
Absolutely.
Is Toronto a fit?
Nah, it would be very, very unintelligent for Dubas to make this trade because I feel like there's a heavy price, but at the same time, you're kind of getting Muzzin. You're kind of getting the Muzzin back, where it's like, okay, not the greatest skater, physical, but is that all he's going to bring? You know what I mean? So
right.
You might be replacing him, but you might be also trying to look for something different.
Yeah, Johansen's out. They could have tried to trade him. Now they can't. That hurts. They're not going to be able to trade Duchesne in all likelihood. Niederreiter.
It's crazy to think back that Forsberg wasn't signed, and maybe if things were different, they could have sold him for a first and a prospect. Right. We're talking about this time last year, right? Because I mean, he was the main guy. It's like, well, he's unsigned, but your team's in the playoff spot, and now obviously he's got the big ticket, but you're going to go 2 years in a row where you just get bounced in the first round, and everybody knows it.
Is there a player out there on a struggling team that you don't think we've talked about that could be moved by next Friday?
A player on a struggling move. We've covered a lot of them. I mean, Arizona, the basics. Chirkrin.
Is there anybody in Vancouver that could be moved that we're not talking about, maybe?
I mean, they want to move everybody, so it's kind of tough. But if I had to think so, maybe why not Thatcher Demko? You know what I mean?
Right.
He might be hurt right now, actually, so it maybe not be.
He's supposed to be back in the next week or so.
It'd be me. So that's a long-term benefit where, you think about a guy who did so well in the playoff bubble. You're like, oh man, like, if this team had this goaltending, how would they look? You know what I mean?
Right.
Obviously, that's yeah. But then you have to have him healthy. He's on the ticket too, so maybe you already have a goaltender in the pipeline. What about who was I thinking? I was thinking about someone from Philly.
Connect
you're gonna hate this, but what about JVR for a team?
Yeah, he's on the last year of his deal, right? So it'd be UFA. I wouldn't hate it. He's not my favorite player. I don't think if you're a Leaf fan, he was ever your favorite player because he's got some Pierre Engvall in him. He's a better player than Pierre Engvall, but they play similarly.
Yeah.
But he can score goals. He's good down low. If you had him on a third line and he was second power play, I think he'd fit.
See, with Pacioretty gone, I feel like Carolina is going to grab somebody like that, somebody who can still add some scoring. But I'm watching them last night. I'm thinking, geez, it's crazy to think that they're this good and they really don't need a ton more. Like, Like
Right.
they've already kind of mastered the way they play, the top six plays.
Mm-hmm.
But if they could use somebody, I mean, who comes to mind for you? Is it somebody from somebody from out west? Is Vancouver? Maybe
Yes.
they go for what's that?
I think if Timo Meyer ends up in Carolina, they should become the favorite to win the Stanley Cup.
Right. I can see that. I can see that.
There's, like you said, I watched them last night too for parts of that game, and they just dominate people every night. They dummy them. Like they had 2-2 against Montreal last week, ended up 6-2, third period.
Yeah.
They just mop the floor with them. St. Louis, they just, okay, we'll let you score a goal here, and then we'll crush you.
Yeah.
Freddie Anderson, I don't trust whatsoever. He'll have a pulled groin or he'll chip a toenail right before the playoffs. It seems to happen every year.
Tummy ache. Yep.
But Korchkov is good. I think he's playing the minors currently, but I think he could be starting game one of the playoffs in all likelihood here. But Timo Meyer to Carolina makes too much sense to me because they could keep him and they could win a cup this year. So it's a win-win for the Canes.
Yeah. So and this sad to think about. I don't think Pacioretty is going to be playing a very long time, if not maybe forever.
Right.
Just too many. When you're talking about ACLs, it can be very. I know we've come a long way as a society through fixing that injury, but still we're not nowhere near there. Yeah, no, I'm on board with that. I love it. Love thinking about Meyer, and I can already vision him in a Canes jersey right now. It would be unbelievable.
Right.
I can see him ripping it up. Maybe him and Svechnikov. I don't know. The ask is going to be large, but
yeah,
they've got some decent prospects. I think, like in their thing. I like Jack Drury. I know he's a guy who comes up and down once in a while, but he seems like he's got a little spice to him. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that it could work, and they'd be such a dominant team that, although they already are.
Yes, and trading first-round picks for that team, do it because you think you're going to win. Like, who cares, right? Because if it's the 32nd pick in the draft, well, okay, take it. That's basically a second-round pick.
Yeah. What does the Sharks want? Are they like I don't know, and I don't know because I haven't heard yet. Is it two firsts?
There hasn't been much reporting on what their ask is, which is interesting to me, and that tells me Mike Greer is actually doing a good job out there because there isn't anything leaked. Because you hear Arizona, you know exactly what they want. Go figure.
It's most trades now. It's like yeah, exactly. It's like most trades. It's like we know exactly what this player's want and worth is, and then there's an expectation of when it's sold. Like if you would have told me that O'Reilly was a first, second, third, and then some salary retention gets in the fourth, then I would have called you crazy. But here we are, right?
Did you find the haul for O'Reilly a lot, or were you okay with it as a Leaf fan?
I think to get a player of that caliber, and although he's maybe not what he was 2-3 years ago, I still think it's great because you're getting experience, you're getting an obvious stud leader. You don't just throw the C on a great team like St. Louis was. So I agree. It was worth it only in the fact that I think, like I said last week, Nylander's gone. One of these big four guys is gone the next couple of years. It's going to happen. So now is the only time to really try and get this done.
What if Timo Meyer ends up on St. Louis and they use all those, the trades that they did for Tarasenko and with the Leafs, and I think that would be a brilliant. If Doug Armstrong can pull that off, he might win Executive of the Year on a team that misses the playoffs.
Yeah. So and you mean like that, and then re-sign him so that he's there for long term.
Exactly. Yeah,
I could see that. Yeah, kind of like a draft day scenario for those who watch that movie.
Yeah.
To take it in and then pull back out.
No matter what.
So yeah, no, it would be a brilliant move, and they missed the playoffs, but it also, like you said, helps your team for the future years, and not to mention you're taking a major piece off the market where.
Yeah,
it's playing defense. It's playing the ultimate game of chess, right?
Right.
Yeah,
it helps you as a Leaf fan.
Yeah, well, that's it. Anyone going for it this year? The Bostons, the Winnipegs, the Dallases. They're all smiling, but obviously, anyone who's still in the I guess the trade race is kind of done.
Winnipeg's an intriguing team. you talked about them a few times here. They are very good. Hellebuck's playing like a Vesna winner. He's out of his that Monday night against the Rangers. He was just cyborg level. Nothing was getting past him. 50 saves at the Garden. Not much better performances than that. Cheveldayoff's been a general manager that's been very timid in the past. He doesn't make the big trade. He goes through trade deadlines, adding a bit piece that you've never heard of. You talk about Scheifele's a UFA, Dubois is an RFA. Wheeler's got 1 year left after this one. It's time to pedal to the metal if you're the Winnipeg Jets.
Yeah.
And I think Timo Meier would work there. I think a Barbashev would fit in really well in Winnipeg. I think they need to be aggressive in the next week and a half and add somebody of significance because I think they can get to a cup final in the West.
Me too. Yeah, no, I agree. It's funny, like last year we were looking at this team wondering like what's going on, and a coaching change maybe fix some things. It doesn't fix everything, but I agree. I mean, you're thinking about Mark Scheifele, RFA. I have a very strange suspicion that Dubois is going to be a Montreal Canadian in the next couple of years. Don't know where that's coming from.
Right.
Thanks to his agent. So yeah, I agree. Like everyone's kind of bought in. This looks like a team that's rejuvenated. You need to add that another piece. You know, Cheveldayoff, you'll bring in a point. He'll bring in like maybe a Brendan Dillon. I think his last big forward move was probably like Kevin Hayes, bringing him in a few years ago. But yeah, they need more than that. They need a big ticket piece, even as a depth guy. Like if Timo Meier was on your third line, I'm sure he would probably say, you know what, that's okay. Like I'm here. I can know my role. I'd be a power play fit, but there's a bigger picture going on here, and that's making it to a Stanley Cup, which I'm sure he would love to return to. So yeah, him. I'm trying to think about who else could make an impact there. I know you said Barbashev, but they're so deep down the center. I have a hard time seeing that.
Yeah, I think it's got to be they could add some more physicality. It could be a Gavrikov on the back end. They could use another defenseman.
True.
Another guy with size because Pionk. I love Morrissey, but Pionk, Morrissey, Schmidt, they're all smaller type defensemen. So that could be a weakness for them come playoff time. I mean, you could go at a Kulikov, but that's boring.
That's not the big piece that they need. You know what I mean? Like
right.
He's a good player. Don't get me wrong, and I think he scored the other night. But if anything, he's a depth guy.
Right.
I'm thinking of no one really on Arizona really sparks too much interest. Like you said, Chicago. I mean, they don't go for Kane. I don't think they want.
Makes sense in Winnipeg.
Yeah, brings a little size. Yeah, I can see that. He's probably familiar with some of the team there.
Yeah, they're intriguing because who do you think's the favorite in the West right now?
It's no one from the Pacific division. I'm sorry, I just have no faith in any team there. Talked about Vegas getting beat earlier. I love LA, but God, that like their goaltending situation is just too risky for me.
Yeah, I agree.
For me, I'd still say Winnipeg. I mean, even if Dallas is in the lead right now, I think Winnipeg's size in the forward structure and the forwards outrank them. I think they've got an unbelievable power play set up, and I know Dallas has got some scores out there, but sometimes it feels like Dallas is a one-line team where it's Robo, Hintz, and then
Little Joe.
Little Joe, and that's kind of all they got. Where I know I'm getting goals from Dubois. I know Ehlers is going to step up. I know Mark Scheifele is going to be there. Adam Lowry can chip in. They've just got different guys all through their lineup. Yeah. So for me, it's Winnipeg. What about you?
Winnipeg, certainly, or if they're healthy, Colorado. But that Makar injury scares me, man. 2 concussions in 11 days. And I hate it because he's one of the best players in the league. He's one of the funnest players to watch, easy to market. And they could win the cup again, but if they don't have him, they don't have a chance in hell.
Yeah, I agree. That's what scares me about this whole season for Landeskog hasn't played.
Yep.
Nathan McKinnon's in and out sometimes, and they've got different guys who just seem to fall off. So it's tough, and it sucks because I had no faith. I think you had a lot more in Gorgiev than I did. I thought he was just going to be a plug-in guy, but there's been times where he's played really, really well this season. I will give you that, when I didn't think he would. But yeah, so that's why I can't give it to Colorado right now. But who knows? They could surprise. Maybe they get healthy all at the same time, and they say, like, let's just get the band back together, because I feel like they could.
Yeah, getting Landeskog back is like a trade deadline move in and of itself. I mean, it's a massive shift, right? So if a team could do that, before we move off hockey, Eastern Conference wildcard race. Who do you have the most faith in? You got Winnipeg, you got Pittsburgh in there, who can't make a save. Washington, who's lost record this year, 330 man games lost due to injury, which, that's tough. Yeah, the Islanders, who seemingly have already played 82 games. No, they've only played 60, but they got 22 left. Florida, who's also played 60 games. Detroit, Buffalo, still in the mix.
Yeah.
Where are you leaning?
So you basically asked me to pick two teams, or do I just have to pick one that I like?
Pick your two teams.
I'm gonna go. Islanders were attractive until they lost Barzal, right? And now it's like, all that trading, all the work they just did, kind of feels like it's, I don't know, it's just get the record deflating. I think Buffalo is gonna make it. I may be a wild man for saying that, but I feel like their offense they generated. We didn't see it last night, but we see it most nights. I think they can compete with anybody in the league when it comes to that, especially their power play. And I'll say Pittsburgh. I don't know. Pittsburgh, I have a hard time seeing a team like that lose. Like, I don't know. Sid's going to will them to a playoff spot. Right. That's all I'm going to say. They got Sid. Gino will put in some points. They can do some things.
Pittsburgh will make it because they never miss.
And then they'll lose in the first round.
Yes. And that's no man's land. I talked about that yesterday. It's the worst place to be. We have a trade.
Oh, let's go.
Not a big one, but we do have a trade, which is the Vegas Golden Knights acquired defenseman Dyson Mayo from the Arizona Coyotes in exchange for a 2023 fifth-round pick and Shea Weber's contract. So it's a salary dump.
That screams. Go ahead.
That screams cap room.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Trade before another trade.
Yeah. Everyone might want to stay on their phones a little later tonight, just in case, because that tells me somebody's going there.
88 going to Vegas. Oh, I want this to happen. It was New York, and I lost out on that dream because I wanted that because I was like a child. I wanted to create it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dyson Mayo, he's a depth defenseman. Likely won't play for Vegas because they are pretty deep on the back end.
Yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, Shea Weber's contract goes in this trade back to Arizona, so they'll take on all that money. They love having players that haven't played for 5 years. They did it with Datsuk, they did it with Pronger,
Hossa. Yeah, all those guys.
All the guys that have skin cancer or no eyes or whatever kind of injury you have, Arizona wants you. But yeah, opens up some space for the Vegas Golden Knights to do something of significance.
So it was Weber and a fifth-round pick. That's what it was.
Weber. Yeah.
Good for them. I mean, Mayo's not a game changer, so getting a little something back, obviously.
Even getting a fifth for Mayo is a good trade.
Yeah, really.
Arizona. So yeah, it's I thought that I saw them put Mark Stone on LTIR last night, and I said this is just too weird. It's Chicago and Vegas playing each other. He goes on LTIR during the game, so it was just something weird about all of that for me.
Yeah, some smells here, and it's not.
It's fishy.
Yeah, it's not the jock strap.
Because it wasn't a massive trade. I wish it was something more significant for you all out there, but it wasn't. But I'm with you. Pittsburgh will get in.
Mm-hmm.
And
who's your other team?
I'm leaning towards the Wings.
You think so? Well, great ride. I have a hard time seeing the Wings, but
I know, me too.
Sider's been good. He's been a lot better this half of the season than he was at the beginning of the season.
And Larkin's been great. And actually, a guy who's been quietly very good lately is Robbie Fabry. He's finding the back of the net.
Good story.
Yes, very good. He's battled a lot. You talk about knee injuries. He had two of them in 2.5 years. I thought his career might have been over.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a bunch, Bergeron, and they have a bunch of guys that have hardly played. But he was dialed in. I watched a lot of that game last night. He was dialed in, making glove saves, flashing the leather at people. Just
St. Louis gave him away for like practically nothing.
Yeah, they kept Benner.
Yeah, good thing they have the snap show because he's doing a lot for that team right now.
Yeah, they kept Benner. That was a tough one for my boy Doug, but
yeah, good trades overall. I
would love to say Buffalo with you because I'll tell you, they didn't play great against your Leafs last night, but a guy who I think played great, even in a 6-3 loss, was Owen Power.
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
Flat out play.
You talk about a guy who just looks like he's going to tweak a few things and then he's going to pop off into probably a star and then shortly after a superstar.
Yeah,
he looks so confident with the puck. It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
Like I watched him make so many small plays last night where it's like instead of throwing it away like maybe other young defensemen would have done, he's holding on to it for that extra like 2 seconds and then making a much smarter play. And he does it all the time. There's not a time where he just throws the puck away. Like he's got such a grasp for, his size, which he's 6'6". Obviously, it's not easy to be 6'6" and dangly out there, but he just understands it, and he works with tight corners. He's great on the wall. Unbelievable. I agree with you. He's going to be so good. Another trade?
No, I thought it was Netflix announces docuseries on 2022 season featuring Patrick Mahomes, Kirk Cousins, and Marcus Mariota. So they're getting into the business of basically Full Swing and Drive to Survive and the break point for tennis.
Yes.
Of course, the NFL has to take it up. If they're not popular enough, they got to take that away from the lesser sports. But that was the news there.
They're like the bigger older brother that just keeps, anytime you get any kind of recognition, he's just got to like blow himself up a little bit more and more until there's no air in the room. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Have you seen Full Swing on Netflix?
No, but I've heard it's really good. Yeah, I look forward to it.
Yeah, it's pretty good. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be supporting Netflix any longer after the end of the month, but we'll see what their new subscription rules.
You got a couple of days.
Yeah. I'm not exactly on board with what they're trying to do, but if I do keep it, then you can guarantee I'll be watching it.
Here. Let's get to the NBA, where we didn't have this on the docket, but I figured you'd be ready to talk about this because when you get breaking news like this that I did not expect, you talk about it. Last night, about 6:30 p.m., the Atlanta Hawks announced that they had fired head coach Nate McMillan after a 29-30 start to the season, and they are immediately starting a coaching search involving Quinn Snyder and Kenny Atkinson, who's under Golden State staff. So I don't know how that's going to work, but anyway. But big news, Nate McMillan out. Basically, Trae Young gets what he wants because he obviously wasn't thrilled with Nate McMillan earlier in the year, as reported. What do you make of this move by Atlanta at the All-Star break? Just seem weird timing to do this now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't understand it either. It's like, what is your team going to do? Your team's going to go on a run here with a new coach and then sneak into a plant? No, like Atlanta is going to do what they've always done, and they're going to be kind of irrelevant in the middle pack. I do think that they can maybe get into the play-in run, and then maybe they get to an 8th seed, and then they lose to a Boston/Milwaukee/Philly. But I mean, why not run it out with the rest of the year with this head coach? Is it really going to bother Trae Young that much to be coached by this guy? Like that he can't stand it? I mean, he's still playing well, so what's the difference?
Right. And Quinn Snyder will be available in April. He's not going anywhere. You can contact him first if that's the way you want to go. And I do think he's a good coach. You also got the old Lakers coach, I think should get another job, that won a Orlando and Indiana, Frank Vogel.
Oh yes, yeah. Vogel's not too bad.
Fired in LA for what? Coaching?
for doing it. Yeah, because LeBron, he probably stepped on LeBron's shoe one day, and it was kind of like the dictator. It's kind of
Right.
like, oh yeah, no problem. And then LeBron went like this once,
Yeah.
and he was
Yeah.
out of there.
Go see David Blatt about what I think about coaching. But he, like you said, Atlanta gets DeJounte Murray in the big trade, but they've been shopping John Collins for seemingly 3.5 years. He's still on the roster. Capella's in and out of the starting lineup. I think the other big, honestly, is a better fit than Clint Capella right now when it
Me
comes to
too.
starting. So that works. They just when I watched them, I don't think DeJounte and Trae fit, which I think me and you talked about in the summer that we said these guys both like the ball an awful lot, and we don't know if it's
Mm-hmm.
going to work. Do you think the firing is maybe Trae Young related, but also maybe the ownership there looks at it and says we should be better in this Eastern Conference that is, other than Milwaukee and Boston, relatively weak this season?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, definitely easy to be. It's definitely easy to say, look, look what we gave you. Look what we did in the offseason. We got you this guy. He's a great player. He's a great two. Why isn't it working out? And it's easier, obviously, to not blame the players and to fire the head coach, very well known across all sports. It's just not a feasible fix. I think it's on the team more than it's on the head coach. And for that reason, I hope Macmillan gets another chance at it because I thought at times he was a really good head coach. I think about a couple years ago when they were in the playoffs. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. So I feel like he'll get another jab at it, but I don't know. I don't. It's going to be interesting to see who they can kind of sweep up midway through a season. I'm sure there's guys lurking around, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know who'd want that job. Steve
Like, are
Nash, maybe.
they, are they better than Brooklyn is right now after all that they've done with trades and everything? Is Atlanta better than the Brooklyn Nets 2.0?
I don't think so.
Me either.
No,
I
I'd take
I
Brooklyn in that
think look,
matchup.
Nets, they're fun.
Well, it's just interesting, right? And I was going to get to them about teams that are in the kind of the pressure cooker, the Heat, and the Nets are in the perfect position because if they do well, it's like, oh, I'm surprised. Like I thought they'd lose those guys, but they got this ragtag full team full of guys like Cam Thomas and um,
Bridges,
is it Nixon? No,
Claxton.
Claxton. Sorry, Claxton. And they're just going to ragtag their way into it. But if they lose and they start going on a losing streak and they maybe fall to a play-in spot or out of the playoffs completely, well, it's like, oh, okay, well, they lost their two superstars. I mean, this was bound to happen. So they've
Right.
got no pressure where a team like Atlanta is like, well, we got a top guard here. We have some great depth in center. We have John Collins, who's supposed to be, whatever John Collins is supposed to be, and we can't seem to figure it out. We can't go ahead and win more than 3 games in a row. So that's part of the reason why I think playing at ease and playing fun basketball like Brooklyn's doing right now is kind of a major contributor to why they still seem to win games.
Right. The Bulls are 11th in the East, and they're in a weird spot where they didn't trade Levine.
Yeah.
DeRozan's still on the team. They didn't trade Vucevic, and they didn't do it. They added Pat Bev. Is actually what they did. They had Pat Bev, but
John Wall.
another tough injury story yesterday. Lonzo Ball has announced he's going to miss he's going to miss this entire season with a nagging knee injury that just doesn't seem to be better. He's improved a lot as a player from a rookie, even his second year. Was shooting 42% from three last season. At one point, they were first in the East when Lonzo was healthy with DeMar and with Levine.
Mm-hmm.
This could be it, Shea, for him too, because he's had a lot of injuries. He had them in college. I hope he can come back, but I don't have a whole lot of faith that he'll be a great player again.
What do you think is over and under? I'll check while you're chatting. What do you think is over and under in the last 2 seasons for games played? Actually, we'll go 3 seasons because
Three
you missed all
seasons?
this one.
Right, so he missed all of 82. Last year, I'm going to say in the last 3 seasons, Lonzo Ball has played 100 games.
Okay.
Probably more than that. I probably went a little. I thought he might have played
I
50
don't know. I
last.
think that you're probably right on the money. So this is back when he played with New Orleans. So we're talking back to the 2021 season, right?
Right. Yep. Yep.
It would be he would have played exactly 90 games. So
Wow.
there you
Last.
go. It's the 30. He's only played 35 games in total with the Chicago Bulls, which just seems
Wow.
very disappointing. If you remember, I mean, that was a significant trade. I think it was an off-season trade.
Yep.
People were happy to see Ball kind of get into a new fit with a new team. That was when they just signed Vucevic. They just got DeMar. They just got Levine. Or Levine was already there, sorry, but DeMar and Vucevic were both new. And it
Right.
was kind of like, oh, this team's rejuvenated. Caruso, I think, was there. Did
Yep.
he get traded in the Austin? Did he get traded this year? I think he got moved. Did he not?
He left the Lakers. Yeah.
Okay, but he's still on the Bulls.
Yeah, he's still there. I thought he'd get moved.
He's a guy that would make so much sense to be traded somewhere because he's so valuable coming off the bench and he was so good. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's still there. I'm just going to double check.
Yeah,
I believe you're right, but I'm just going to
yeah.
make sure.
I'm sure LeBron would have. I think LeBron loved him as a teammate, so I'm sure he would have loved to have him back.
Yeah, I
Just,
still think about that story about them. He got what was it? He was posted for. Yeah, he's still with the Bulls. They posted a pic of him, but it was like, I think he must have been like edited or something, and he was huge.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
The day after, they drug tested him because this photo kept going around that he was like massive. He must be with A-Rod's guy.
But they're they're in no man's land too.
Absolutely.
The Bulls with the Hawks, like they're there.
That's the easiest way of saying it. They're there. They're not going to get a good pick, but they also didn't do anything, which tells me that they feel like management feels like they can maybe scrummage some things in this offseason, and then I don't know. I guess they think that they are going to be a playoff team next year, or they're just going to completely blow it up in the offseason. They didn't feel like whatever people were offering them at this time was good enough. You know what I mean?
Are the Bulls going to be at least in the play-in game?
Well, the way the Pacers look right now, I would say that could be a possibility.
Right.
I was really thinking the Pacers might have a good second half and sneak in. I was kind of rooting for it just because they do have such a great young Canadian talent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I still think the Bulls can make it in just as a play-in team, but that's about it. They would lose in the play-in, I'd have to think.
Are the Raptors a play-in team?
We're talking about my pressure cookers. They are deep in the pressure cooker because I don't know. Masai thinks that they're obviously good enough to be in a play-in role, and then
right
in the first round, which I guess you get more ticket sales and you're promoting your team a little bit more. But is it helping your team overall? I mean, what do you think?
No, because I think people show up to sports in Toronto no matter what. Whether you're good or not, normally there's attendance. Yeah. Blue Jays were bad for 20 years, and they still got decent attendance numbers. You know, from 93 on, they didn't make the playoffs till 2015. That's 22 years. That's a long effing time to be a bad franchise, which is what they were. And it wasn't like people weren't showing up to the Dome. Raptors were the baby dinosaurs forever, and they're getting goofed on by Jordan and Kobe and Jalen Rose and everything else, and they still were somewhat relevant. I do think that they can sneak in, but I don't know if they can get to avoid the play. I don't think I heard Fred VanVleet say we could get to 6 in the East. I don't know if they can rise that far. I don't see them getting to that point.
No, I don't trust them. There's just too much going against them, and I feel like the Eastern Conference is just too big for them. I will say that Pirtle, although a head-scratching move maybe because it's like, oh, I thought we were selling. Why are we buying? Right. Now it's like, okay, well, he's playing pretty good, and maybe if he's a piece for the future, I guess that makes sense because you need a center. Yeah, overall, it's very strange that they didn't sell off at least one major piece. You know what I mean? Yeah. Even if it's a Gary Trent Jr., even if it's an OG, why not just give one of those guys? Okay, that tells me we're selling it for the year. But no, it's like we got to keep going. We're going to keep pushing just to lose in the first round.
Yeah. Better move /fit. Westbrook to the Clippers or Kevin Love to the Heat?
I'm going to say Kevin Love to the Heat.
Right.
It might seem like a strange one, but they're not a good offensive team. They're one of the worst offensive teams in the league. But
Third worst 3-point shooting team in the NBA.
Yeah, there you go. And what is Kevin Love known for?
Summer threes.
Summer threes. This guy will spray him all over. When Cleveland shut him down, I thought he would have been traded or moved, but I mean, they must have had enough respect to say, hey, we're going to let you pick a team that you think is most confident. And I guess Miami was the only team, maybe big enough to roll in.
Let's stop there. Cleveland, I get it. You say you're going to retire his number. It's a bit much. Okay. Maybe you haven't had anybody other than LeBron that you're really that proud of that played for your team. I get it. Kevin Love, he's fine. Mm-hmm. He's a good guy. K-Love, summer threes. I love it all. He's white, so he's got that. He's got that in the NBA where he was actually a decent player. So you kind of remember that. But why would you buy him out so that you see him go to the Heat? They could be battling for fourth, fifth, sixth seed in the East. I don't get. I would have put something in my closet you can't sign in the Eastern Conference. Okay, go to Phoenix for all I care, but I don't want you playing against me down the line in a potential first-round playoff series.
Yeah, it is kind of the real toss away, and it's one man's garbage is another man's gold, and that's what Miami feels like they've stumbled upon because, like we said, they're a great defensive team, but they've got nothing going offensively. So, yeah, it's crazy to think about that Cleveland would just kind of give them away for nothing, not even to trade them, you know what I mean? Trade them for a second-round pick, trade them for a handful of G League guys, but no, we're just going to let them walk first, I guess, respecting. I guess that's all I can think about. It's hey, we love you this much. We respect you. We're not going to play you
right.
We'll let you go somewhere else. It's a pretty confident move by Cleveland's management.
Yes. And I think Miami had to do something because they didn't land Durant and they didn't make a big trade at the deadline.
Yeah,
Kyle Lowry's still there, which I don't think many Heat fans are excited about. So they had to do something to present that they're going to be relevant. And to their credit, if they get into the playoffs, they scare pretty much everybody in the East just the way they play.
Yeah. I was looking today. They have 8 guys who average 10 points this season that have more than 20 games in the roster. That shows a lot of depth. I mean, I get it. Some of those guys maybe just on the cuff of that, but still, that's good. And if it's crazy to think that if Victor Oladipo has stayed healthy, what kind of impact does he have on this team? I mean, I feel like he could be a nightly threat, at least even as a sixth man.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, same as Lonzo, same with a lot of these guys. They're just injuries kind of derail great careers.
What about Westbrook to the Clippers? Is it going to work, do you think?
I think if he checks the ego in, I think it's going to work. So strange that he just moved from LA to LA.
Didn't have to move.
Yeah, no, exactly. He didn't have to move. He's just there. I think it could work. Thinking about getting rid of John Wall, letting him walk to Houston. If he gets those type of minutes, that's maybe 15 to 20 minute role. He's not shooting any shots because he unfortunately just has lost his shot, which feels like completely. I think it could be okay. I think if he's running a second unit that consists of guys like Bones Nyland, Eric Gordon, trying to think who they got for backup big. Yes, Plumlee. Yeah. I mean, that's a good second unit, and Westbrook can still distribute the ball, right? So it's not that's never been a factor. I think it's just more keeping him off from shooting. But yeah, I mean, he's still a big name. He's having fun out there, which we know. But I mean, he's got to be laughing now because he got dished from the Lakers only to get put on a Clippers team that's actually going to make a playoff spot this year.
Right. Yeah, and I think he'll be motivated to play well, but because it's just harnessing that and putting it in the right way. Because Kawhi will either love or hate Russ.
I think he's going to hate him. I can't see that relation. They're not going out for lunch together. They're not going for coffee or a couple beers. They're there to get the job done. But I don't know. Maybe it's a beautiful combination between those guys. Maybe it's the next big three: Westbrook, George, and Kawhi. Who knows?
Right. Yeah, coming off the bench, the big three. Does he come off the bench?
I would say so. I think you can't. I think I think they really like Terrence Mann
Yeah.
as a starter now. I think they're very comfortable with that guy. I mean, yeah, it just makes too much sense to keep him on there, and then, those other guys can scrum it up on the bench while Kawhi does. Maybe when Kawhi's on load management, they say, "Hey, Westbrook, we'll give you a game."
Right. The thing about the Clippers is they go 10, 11 deep. Like, they're one of the deepest teams in the NBA when it comes to guys who can play minutes. So that they're going to be a tricky out. What did you make of All-Star Weekend? A G Leaguer winning the dunk contest. I couldn't name you one of the dunk contest participants. I didn't know any of them, and I
Me
feel like I
neither.
know
I
sports
saw
pretty
the
well.
most embarrassing clip. It was when I forget. Like I said, I didn't know anything either. And so to be quite frank, I didn't follow it very, very heavily. I mean, Giannis getting hurt really put a damper on things. He's obviously might be one of the more entertaining. I did like the team events. You know how they have like the 3-team skill events for each
Right.
for some of those. I think that was really cool. But yeah, ultimately it was kind of a bust. And the dunk, I want to say, he did the Vince Carter dunk with the arm in there.
Right.
And when he did it, there was absolutely no reaction from the crowd. There wasn't. No one put their hands up. No one kind of fell back into the bench. Like there was none of that. It was kind of like, okay. And then he turned around, and then he had the paper, and then I think he tried to open the paper, but he couldn't do it fast enough.
Whoa.
Overall, tough looking, buddy. If someone has it out there, maybe I'll send you after the pod. But
Right.
yeah, not a great look. Overall, I mean, it's bad when I feel like a lot of the players and coaches didn't like it either. Like, I mean, you heard the frustration from a lot of people. Yeah, it's interesting. The best thing that came out of it was Anthony Edwards saying that load management's a bunch of garbage and that he will never do it. God, I love that man.
Oh, I love him even more now. I love him, but he's right. I mean, it's crock. You know what? These players can't that they're sitting out so much. It's the biggest problem with the NBA currently is that you just don't know who's going to play night in and night out. And Michael Malone called the All-Star game the worst game he's ever seen. He was coaching, which is funny. Also, NBA. How about not Utah? Just a just a thought. I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of going back to our conversation last week about the NHL All-Star game going to Toronto. It's like, yeah, these guys probably don't want to go to Utah in February. They'd probably much rather go to like a Miami / LA /
Right.
anywhere but Utah. They'd probably come to Toronto before they come to Utah.
I think I saw a post yesterday that it was something about the 2025 All-Star game, and it was 3 cities that you wouldn't exactly be clamoring for.
Right.
And Patrick Kane commented, "Yeah, LOL, can't wait to see how many players boycott that game."
Oh, Jesus.
He's not afraid to voice his opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you've won 3 cups and you've got MVPs, I think you're allowed to voice frustration. Yeah, I mean, it's not a great event. I can understand why anyone wouldn't want to watch it. I tease you because I know you hate it, but at the same time, I'm not really spending a whole lot of my hours digging into it.
MVP frontrunner as the NBA kicks off tomorrow night for the last quarter of the year. Who's the leading guy currently?
Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Still in my mind. It's a race, but obviously somebody's got to do something very spectacular. You're seeing guys drop off, like you see at the beginning of the year, there was a stretch where I thought Kevin Durant might have given him a little shot for his money. Thought Steph Curry would. Those guys have both seen injuries and are kind of out of the lineup. Trying to think. At one point, I thought John Morant maybe would try and juggle them just with some of his numbers that he was putting up, but with Memphis kind of playing, I'd say mid-level through most of 2023. I don't know if that's going to factor into it. Yeah, so he's my guy. Is there anyone else that you could see challenge him? Or maybe you have somebody completely different?
I'm with you. I got Joker number 1. I think Tatum still has a shot. I think Tatum's motivated. if
fourth guy
if
maybe.
they win the East and he plays really well down the stretch here, that could be something that propels him.
What's going to help that is that there's a lot of injuries right now to
Yeah.
Boston, so he's actually going to have to play well if he wants to keep up that that 1 seed, which is going to be very difficult with Milwaukee breathing down the necks.
And also, Giannis is hurt. Sounds like he's going to miss some time to start. He's got a fractured or something wrong with
That's
his
right.
wrist, so he's going to miss some time. So he's likely out of it. Like say KD, Jaw out of it. Likely be Tatum, Joker, Luca, maybe.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
Dallas catches fire.
yeah. You know how I feel about Dallas last week. They didn't even make my top 5, but
No.
that doesn't mean it. You see it
De'Aaron
in the
Fox.
NHL. De'Aaron Fox. Yeah, maybe Buddy Hield. Maybe gets a little love.
Turner.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be interesting, but
There's
I mean
a lot of people, and I hear people being pissed off that Joker might win 3 in a row. But I'm like, well, he plays at least.
yeah, he's not one. He never sits out. He plays every game regardless, and he
Yeah.
doesn't. He's a walking triple double. I know Russell Westbrook was a walking triple double a couple of years ago, but that was kind of feel like it was forced down our throats. He's just naturally just doing it, and he's surrounded by great players, and he's playing well. That's not his fault. He's going to win it 3 times.
We'll quickly go to this baseball.
Mm.
You got spring training games starting tomorrow, which I'll be watching none of them. But I'm glad baseball is on the horizon of being back. What's the biggest storyline heading into this new campaign for you?
The biggest. Oh, there's a lot. Selfishly, I'd like to say that the LA Dodgers and their lack of in the off season might be
The lack of transactions.
Yeah, basically, and the amount of people we lost. With that, I would love to say that Shohei is going to be on the market. Yeah, I'd probably go with that. I'd say Shohei. His agent came out recently, basically said, "Yeah, we're not going to talk about trades or anything, but we're definitely going to be looking to 2024 and seeing what our options are." To me, why are you? All he has to do is turn around on the mound and look back at Mike Trout and say, "God, is this where I want my career to be?"
Right.
A great player that's just wasted for so many years. So yeah, for that reason, I think Shohei, and if the team knows it, I think he'll be moved.
I agree with you. I think the curious thing is how bad are they come the All-Star break, and are they going to deal him at the trade deadline to another team?
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned your Dodgers. They didn't spend a whole lot of money. Wonder if there's a reason for that. Wonder if there's a reason why they might have $400 to $500 million laying around, because I think he's going to get $500 million his next deal.
Yeah,
which is crazy, but at the same time, he's unreal. Saw him in person; he's a cyborg. But yeah, he's the biggest draw in the sport. He bats, he doesn't even speak English that well, but he's by far the biggest name, which is another impressive thing for him because. The other story that I wrote this in because it's a joke, big story. It's no story. Aaron Judge is the new captain of the New York Yankees. That equals who gives a fuck?
Who wrote this in?
Oh, I read a piece in The Athletic, the biggest MLB stories, and that was one of them. That is the next captain. Who cares?
Yeah, everyone likes to crown somebody for not doing much. I think at 27, I'm pretty sure Jeter probably had, I'm going to say 3 World Series behind his, plus I don't know, however many Golden Gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I get it. Judge is a great player. What he did last year was spectacular, and even I'm still blown away by it, even when I think about it now. But come on. Like, there's only one true captain, and that's a guy who leads his team to victory.
Right.
You can't even beat Houston.
You couldn't get a game. They got swept.
It's frustrating. Frustrating to think about for sure.
But yeah, the Yankees, big deal. We got a new captain. Okay. No story. I also think this is a big one. The Padres, and in particular, Tatis Jr. and how he comes back after being caught doing the A-Rod juice.
Yeah.
How does he play? Does he play second base? Does he play in the outfield? And just what's his perception like around baseball? Because he was such a star, and I'm wondering what his reception will be like when he goes on the road this season.
Yeah, yeah, because the biggest difference I can think of with the Barry Bonds and all those guys, the Clemens, there's no social media back then. Yeah,
Nope.
you might have saw it in the news, but it's all over, and now players are going to voice their frustration over it, probably say why you didn't get more games or, what's it like being a cheater. But yeah, if he can just keep his head down, play his game, and when I say keep his head down, I don't mean like not be himself, because I think when he was in his prime, he was a spectacular player and he showed a lot of passion for the game.
Yep.
But obviously, he's got some antics off the field. He's just got to keep away from the driving without a helmet, the sticking stuff in your ass. It's gotten out of control with him.
Yeah, he's clearly not mature, and that's a problem as well with him. But Machado is already saying, "I'm going to opt out. I want more money." They re-signed Yu Darvish. They brought in Xander Bogaerts. They're spending more money than they got out, and they're desperate to win in San Diego. So,
yeah,
but a lot of teams spending a lot of money. Padres, Phillies, both teams who got to the NLCS last year spent a lot of money in free agency. Teams like your Dodgers did not. They kind of zigged while everybody else zagged, so to speak.
Yeah. San Fran, they spent some cash too. They want to see.
Yeah.
They got some results coming their way, and obviously Texas signed DeGrom and Evaldi, right? So, like,
did you see DeGrom's already got injured when he threw his bullpen session?
No, but I'm not surprised. It's not shocking anymore to see DeGrom just in out. Oh, I'm going to play a game here. I'm going to be off for 7 months. Like, I don't know.
It's so unfortunate because the dude's so talented.
He could have been the best pitcher probably ever, I would say. If he was healthy from the time he started till, we'll say 40 years old, he could have been one of the best.
I also think another small story is just the number of teams that are going to flat out stink. The Pirates stink. Colorado stink. Cincinnati stinks.
Arizona.
The Cubs won't stink that much, but they also stink. There's a chance the Orioles, who had a great year, could stink, and it's just like a one-off, and they're brutal again this season. I won't rule that out. That American League Central, that whole division just stinks of something. I don't know what, but Tigers will likely stink again. It's just there's teams that spend a lot of money, and there's teams that don't, and you got to be incredibly good at drafting, developing Tampa Bay Rays to remain competitive if you're not spending any money.
Yeah. Is it a playoff thing? And I'm not asking because I know I'm asking for general curiosity. Is it like because there's only 10 teams that make the playoffs, 8 teams that make the playoffs? Is that like why so many teams are like, well, we're not going to make the playoffs anytime soon, so we'll just stink it up for 3 years, 5 years?
Part of it, because if you're owning the business and you're saying, okay, I could spend $200 million and I miss the playoffs, or I could spend 40 or less, Oakland Athletics, and make the playoffs. That does make more sense because you're spending $200 million, you're losing money. Because look at Oakland, nobody shows up to that ballpark. They get 5,000 people a game.
I enjoy the fact that there's a soft cap or maybe no cap, whatever you want to say, with the luxury tax that goes on. There should be a minimum that you have to spend.
Agreed.
Come on, these are billionaires, not millionaires, billionaires who own these teams, and they have the funds. They just refuse to spend them. That's just, like you said, embarrassing for the sport overall.
Yeah, no, I agree. They should have to, because it creates a product that's watered down, and quite frankly, not that you get jacked up for good series, but half the games from each team every year, it's not Pittsburgh, Chicago Cubs for the last 4 years has been a disaster of a series. Nobody wants to watch it. Since you mentioned the Colorado Rockies, their biggest free agent signing was Chris Bryant. Who could have seen that being a flat-out disaster? This guy. But they were lauded for spending $80 million on him. They still stink. Baseball. But it's back. America's second favorite pastime. Spring training, March 30th, I believe, is opening day, so we'll be jacked up for that. You got a big weekend coming up. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of different things. Anniversary for you and your other half.
Thank
You're
you.
heading to Toronto. When's Wheels Up? When's the Bird heading to Toronto?
We're staying with a couple good friends tomorrow night, and we're not going to do the burden of asking them to drive us to the airport at whatever 3:30, 4 in the morning. So we'll take the wheels there and then fly out at 6 o'clock, and this is all hypothetical. Hopefully that it works out fine because you never know with flying these days and
Right.
all the things that go along with it. And then it's kind of a chill. Like we get there Friday, we check in, we do a couple things, check out the city a little bit. A Hockey Hall of Fame on Friday, which I'm excited about.
Nice.
And then games 7 Eastern. Watch that. I'm gonna meet some friends out for a couple of drinks afterwards, and then just a full day set up for Saturday, which I'm really looking forward to. And then Sunday, it's kind of okay, recuperate and get the hell out of there, and then hopefully mid-afternoon, you're back and kind of in your own house. So a quick trip, but a lot jam-packed into it. I'm looking forward to it.
Going to the Ripley's Aquarium.
Going to Ripley's Aquarium. I heard that's a must. Is that on your list? Is that something
Yes,
you've done?
I love the fish, man. I love the animals, but no, it's cool. Yeah, I think you'll enjoy it. It's real close to the Hockey Hall of Fame, so
Okay.
you can hit two in the same time. But I enjoy going to Ripley's Aquarium.
Anything on your list that you'd say, oh, I would if I could tell one touristy thing / sneaky thing, whether it's a site, whether it's somewhere to go check out.
Yeah, let me think of that.
Fortunately, all my trips to Toronto are usually business, so I don't
Right,
don't
right.
don't have going for pleasure very often.
I would actually. This is my piece of advice. Don't go to the CN Tower. It's overrated.
I think we have dinner there one day. And it's already like booked, paid for, so I don't think I can get
Well, I've
out of
never
it.
been to the restaurant. I'm just saying, like up top and everything.
Yeah,
It's
that part.
not
Okay.
that cool. It's not that
Okay.
cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like it's there, but
Yeah. Draws in a crowd though. That first trip to Toronto for
Oh,
that
yeah,
couple / friend group,
yeah.
they're hitting the tower and they're spending some cash.
And you got Wild Maple Leafs, a little Friday night action.
Yes. Yeah. Who would have thought that I'd be more excited to see Kirill Kaprizov than I think any other player on the team. Obviously everyone else is great, but
Right.
to see Kaprizov play, my God, that's exciting.
Should be a fun game. Two exciting up tempo teams.
Two
Set
playoff teams. I
group.
mean,
Yep.
yeah. And obviously, a big thank you to you. You were the one who suggested. You had the picks. You could have doused me with like a Toronto versus like Arizona. Toronto versus they probably would have lost anyways. There's Toronto versus Chicago, but you picked a good one. So I obviously a very big appreciation coming from you, and thank you for helping her out with that. It was a major surprise. One of the probably the best Christmas gift I'll ever have in my life. So thank you for that.
That's awesome. Happy for you guys. Before I let you go, Jimmy Kimmel is hosting the Oscars. Yay or nay?
Nay, I don't like Jimmy Kimmel. I think he'll be funny, but he's just so awkward. Like, it's when you go and grab like a Al Pacino, De Niro, and then make them do stupid stuff on, play this stupid game. It's like, okay, really?
Right.
And it happens too often. So I'm not a Kimmel guy. I'm not a big
Jimmy
late night.
Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel?
Oh, maybe I'm thinking Jimmy Fallon.
Jimmy Kimmel's ABC. Yeah, Jimmy Fallon.
Oh, okay. My bad. Oh, my
Fallon
bad.
does he does like the singing stuff and the impression wheel and all that. Yeah, he's the good one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Big apologies to Jimmy Kimmel. I got you mixed up.
Scandal.
Oh yeah, no, that makes it a little bit better. I thought you were talking about Fallon, and I don't have anything for him.
Yeah, no, he would be a bad host. He would be.
Yeah. I don't know what you've tracked, but I'm through 7 of the 10 best pictures. Are you gonna stomach the Top Gun movie? Not gonna be able to watch it?
Not getting through that.
No.
I've gotten through.
Good.
Yeah, I'm sure it was. I've watched. I meant that sincerely. I watched Tar. I've watched. Yeah, I think I've watched them all minus Top Gun.
Oof. So you watched the Woody Harrelson one then too?
I did. Yep.
Did you stomach it, or was it?
I thought it was fine. It
Yeah,
was
me too.
it was
Interesting.
good. Like I enjoyed it. It was high pace and there was some levity to it. So I thought I thought it was a solid film.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's good. Right now for me, it's everything everywhere all at once and The Fablemans. God, I
Yeah,
love that movie. That was a great movie.
Fableman's was good, eh? Yeah.
It was. I didn't think I'd like it. I don't like coming to age movies, but I really enjoyed it. So hopefully it does well. Spielberg, just give him the
Yeah.
one of those.
What a mensch, old Steven Spielberg. But
Yeah.
have a great weekend, my
Thank
friend.
you.
Thanks for the time today, and we'll talk to you next week. Happy
Appreciate it.
anniversary.
Thank you. Give you the recap next week. See you,
All
pal.
right. There's Shamus Fillmore. Great to chat with him as we do every Tuesday, now Wednesday, here on the show. And yeah, he's got his anniversary this week, heading to Toronto, Ontario, Canada to see his Maple Leafs play. Happy for him. And happy for him and Kennedy, to a great couple, a couple of great people. So happy for them to be able to take that in. And she messaged me before Christmas and asked me a game I thought Shamus would enjoy. I recommended Minnesota and Toronto because Minnesota's a fun team. Kaprizov is a player I really like to see live myself. You got a physical group down there against the Maple Leafs. Should be a fun game Friday night in Toronto. What could beat it? I mentioned the trader Dyson Mayo is now in Vegas. No news yet on any other trades involving the Vegas Golden Knights. I think something's coming, folks. I think by tomorrow afternoon, by the time the show starts tomorrow, I think we're going to have a big trade to break down here on the show. I really hope so, and I think it might just involve Patrick Kane. Vegas is doing something. They're clearing out room. They're trading away contracts to bring people in. They can trade Shea Weber and move him off their LTIR because they can now put Mark Stone in that place. So that's why it was necessary to get rid of him. Arizona will take on that money. Technically counts as salary, so gets them to the cap floor and things of that nature if they do pull off. But I think Vegas is going to do something tonight. They are in action, I believe. No, they're not. They play tomorrow night against the Calgary Flames. 3 games in the NHL tonight. We got Winnipeg in Long Island to play the Islanders. We got Vegas, clear the blank. Vegas clearing up space for the next few years. Weber's contract has a $7.875 million cap hit through 25-26, although his actual salary is $1 million per year starting next season, so a low cash transaction for Arizona. But Vegas can now look at acquiring not just now, but beyond this season. So helps them right now and into the future. But I think, yeah, they could definitely do something in the offseason, but I think they want to do more. I think they want to do something now. What that is, I think Patrick Kane makes a hell of a lot of sense. But I'm going to predict by tomorrow afternoon show, which is Thursday, February 23rd, to quote Gary Bettman, you're going to want to hear this. I think we'll have a trade to break down, a trade to get into. The NBA returns tomorrow. We have the Honda Classic down in Florida beginning tomorrow. 3 NHL games tonight. Maybe a big trade. Wait to see. But tomorrow it will be only 8 days to the trade deadline. So things are going to start to move and shake here. Luke Schen's getting held out of games. Gavrikov still being held out. Chikrin's still being held out. So interesting. Flames are at the Coyotes. 10:30 start. That's an interesting game to watch. Coyotes have been on a tear. Flames need this win desperately. Because they're in no man's land also. They just need to make the playoffs. Huberdeau, Daryl Sutter, collision course. Who knows where that goes moving forward. But we'll be back tomorrow, hopefully with even more news to talk to you all about. But until then, have a great rest of your evening. We'll talk to you soon. Just to the point.